right, here with the Fishbowl team, Kendrick, Kara, and Casey. Why don't each of you start off by just making a quick introduction of, who you are and what you do at Fishbowl?
Hey, thank you, Kyle. Kendrick here. I'm the chief evangelist here at Fishbowl. I've been with the company for going on 18 years now. Had the benefit of spending a lot of time in our product and engineering org, some time with sales, and I currently get the pleasure of working with our partners team and with Casey and Kara in particular. I'll pass it over to Kara.
Thanks, Kendrick, and thanks, Kyle and Thomas, for having us. So my name is Kara. I am the strategic partner manager here at Fishbowl, and I've been here, I've been here for 2 years, and I joined Fishbowl actually coming from the customer end. So I had implemented and operated Fishbowl for about 4.5 years, and that was after having implemented both Sin 7 and NetSuite. So it's been a unique journey to land where I am now, getting to work with the various partners and kind of expand on where Fishbowl helps solve the needs of clients with inventory management needs.
Great. Thank you, Kara and Kendrick, for doing fabulous introductions, and Kyle and Thomas for having us. So my name is Casey Duran. I'm our director of our strategic channel development, and I've been with Fishbowl for 4 years now. And previous to that, I actually worked for Intuit, managing the account management team over QuickBooks Enterprise products. And now at Fishbowl, I get to use some of those skills I learned at Intuit, but here in expanding our Intuit relationship, our Xero relationship, and our partnership with our wonderful partners like you all.
Awesome. Thanks for the intros. This is our first time I think, meeting the three of you in person, or at least it is for me. So I don't know who best to answer this question, but feel free to jump in. Who can best explain to me, what is Fishbowl?
We're in end-to-end inventory management. We provide a lot of functionality that complements the inventory, warehousing, and manufacturing problems that small businesses to mid-market companies face. We connect in with QuickBooks and with Xero. We've actually been the #1 requested integration partner with QuickBooks for a lot of years, since 2003. We were actually the first Gold Star developer that Intuit ever had as a partner. And we've just been on that track of trying to help small to emerging mid-market businesses really manage what's happening in their organization. And the name Fishbowl actually comes from the idea that you can see what's happening in your business from every angle. While there are differences in what access individuals should have based on what their role may be, from CEO down to a warehouse worker, it's important for all of them to have clarity as it relates to inventory and manufacturing. So Fishbowl's really been focused as kind of a missional approach to empowering businesses to have everything that they need to grow and succeed with inventory and manufacturing, which traditionally can be pretty hard topics to tackle. When you look at supply chain and you look at optimization, there's a lot of capital that gets eaten up in bad inventory management or lack of inventory management. So, Fishbowl is meant to be a solution to solve for those problems that folks have when they're worried about stuff on the shelves.
So obviously, the answer to this question is going to be anybody, I think, that requires inventory. But if you could better narrow in, who is your ideal customer or business? Like, who is Fishbowl the best for?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, candidly speaking, we're not perfect for everybody. While it is true that a lot of our customers that really scale a variety of industry verticals, there are some scenarios where we're not a great fit, and we want to be transparent about those. An example would be anytime we have dual units of measure, so stone companies or cabinet companies or seafood shop where they sell boxes of product, but it's a 20-pound box, which actually weighs 19 pounds one time and 22 pounds the time after that. That maybe isn't the best fit for Fishbowl. There are some industry-specific solutions that maybe fit. But outside of some of those unique workflows, there definitely are some commonalities we see. And these industries I've got here on the screen are some great examples of where Fishbowl really thrives. So food and beverage and healthcare and pharma, there's some examples of when compliance is really a requisite. So if you're dealing with food and beverage, the FDA is all in the middle of that. If you're in healthcare and pharma, regulatory is certainly a concern. So we have a lot of functionality that supports in industry verticals like these by providing the reporting, the tool set, and the fields that complement an audit and the workflows that these folks would go into. Similarly, automotive and aerospace, construction and trade, it's all about tracking what you've got, where it's at, knowing costs associated with those types of things is imperative. And for a lot of these industries, the difference in a few pennies can make the margins. If they're selling in volume, it's really important that they understand their supply chain, how to get things at the best cost, and then to manage them so they can get them out the door. The reality is that anyone who has stuff on a shelf and a need to track it could be a great fit for Fishbowl. And years ago, we sat down and went through an exercise with our marketing team. When we got to about 85 industry verticals, we finally said, you know what, we're a bit of a vanilla software. There are some outliers. And so we always try to make sure as part of the process, we do a personalized demo to ensure that in your scenario, it's going to fit. But generally speaking, if you have inventory needs and you're using QuickBooks or Xero, you're likely supplementing that with Excel or paper documents or something like that. And that's where Fishbowl could be a great solution for you. Because we have the reporting capability, we can get HACCP reporting. We can get, for firearms and defense, the ATF logbook ready to go. We can get whatever documentation you need. Custom reporting is a big offer for us as well.
So just jumping off something you said there, do you do demos for interested businesses to find that best fit, to see if you are the best fit? Is that a free demo that they can book on your website?
Yeah, absolutely. And our sales team has a combined 100+ years experience. We're also familiar with other players in the space. So if you're looking for inventory and manufacturing, and particularly to integrate with QuickBooks, you may already be looking at other solutions in the space. We're friendly to those. We actually have lead sharing in scenarios where they can't meet a need. They'll send them our way and vice versa. So if it's not a solution that we can solve for, chances are our team can say, hey, we don't do that, but in this scenario, someone else may be able to.
That's great. I like that. At least, people will be pointed in the right direction. So that's nice to hear. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, it's more than just lip service. So as an example,
good.
Katana have a better solution around apparel than Fishbowl provides. So we'll show them what we've got and we'll say, this is what it does. But if this isn't doing what you need, then you might want to check out Katana. And, full disclosure, we want them to get the best fit because we know when they believe Fishbowl really meets their needs, and we're invested together.
If I were to ask you the question, what are the 4 things that set Fishbowl apart from the competition, or the 4 things that you'd want the people watching this to know about Fishbowl? What would it be?
The first one that we hit on is going to be integrations. It turns out at the end of the day, we need to be connected in to all the business systems that a company uses and not just have a siloed approach. So Fishbowl's invested heavily in having those integrations to make sure that you can be successful.
Okay, so number 1 being integrations?
Yeah. The second would be to focus on our core strengths. So I've already touched on that a little bit, but really inventory and manufacturing and all of the associated inputs and outputs are what make the difference. What I mean by that are that for inventory management to work, you have to have a system that can do all the things your business is doing. So many solutions try to tell you this is how you need to manage your inventory. Fishbowl takes a different approach where we understand what your business workflows are and then tailor the workflows to meet those unique needs.
So Kendrick, if I could probably touch on a point, I would say implementation and support is a very big win for us, especially if I put on my customer hat. Kendrick, if you want to jump to the slide, you're welcome to, but we do have 4 pillars in a sense that I consider our pillars to success for a successful go live. So we do in-house implementation, and we typically can get customers live in 6 to 8 weeks, even in the most complex situations. The cool thing about Fishbowl is we align our customers with industry-specific implementation specialists. And with that implementation specialist that's going to onboard your clients and train your clients, you're also getting a dedicated account manager that is available to you at all times. And I love to note that it's an actual human that picks up the phone. And then they also get access to unlimited USA-based support. And so that is through phone, chat, or email. And that was a huge win for me just because for my team, it felt like Fishbowl felt like an extension of our team when I was a customer, as opposed to just a product that I purchased and was kind of trying to figure out. A really big call out with our implementation that Kendrick has shown here is that we do this 5-tiered approach to our implementation. So we go through a very dialed, what I call recipe to success, and we help build out all of the database with your client. So we do all of your data migration. We help build everything from your parts, your customers, your vendors, your SKUs. So it's a very detailed handheld process to ensure clients are successfully onboarded and happy with their journey at Fishbowl.
And I think, is there a fourth? Is there anything else you'd like to
Yeah,
highlight?
so many things
Okay.
that we really could talk about, but at the end of the day, I think our fourth that would call out is visibility. So, the value that Fishbowl or any other system is providing really is meant to provide insights so companies, operators can make better decisions about their businesses. It's always driving back to how do they become more profitable, how do they become more efficient, how do they meet their customers' needs. And Fishbowl's in a great position to provide the data and insights that allow operators to improve and to make more informed and better driven decisions. We hear a lot about AI as of late, and
Yeah,
since
of course.
2018, Fishbowl's had a phenomenal integration and an AI offering that's more than just smoke and mirrors. It's conversational insights that drive to better business outcomes. So we provide tools that help with forecasting and reporting, as well as in the moment, I need to know details like who are my dormant customers, or what are my top selling products, or what's my longest lead time. So all of that drives back to providing answers so that humans can make better business decisions.
That's great, and hopefully we get to see a little bit of the reporting and the capabilities in the demo we're going to do shortly.
Absolutely.
But I want to circle back. One of my questions I had on my list refers back to the first better ways point that you made, which was integration. So what's the most common integration or companion app that your customers are using?
Yeah, that's a great question. So most of our customers are leveraging our accounting integration first.
Okay.
And that's because at the end of the day, the problems we're trying to solve for ultimately need to end up in the financials. Inventory is heavily connected to AP and AR, and that drives the balance sheet, and that drives the success of a company. So we have an integration that's second to none with QuickBooks. We've been the #1 requested add-on for QuickBooks for a number of years running. We work with desktop and with online QuickBooks. That's another call
Okay, that's
out
good to
that
know.
a lot of others don't have that desktop connection. And I get all excited about this, where people probably don't care, but some of the desktop connections that exist use the web connector. We actually predate that in a good way. Sometimes when you say
Okay.
you software, that's not good, but we fortunately were able to work directly with the Intuit team to write a direct integration that bypasses the web connector that the desktop software has. And so we can sync large amounts of data in a timely manner. We don't have the fail rates that some of the other solutions out there because they're not reliant on that web connector piece, which frankly Intuit has not maintained as well the last 5 or 8 years.
Okay.
So good solid
Good to know.
connection there. I don't want to go too far down the road, Kyle, but that's from an accounting perspective.
Sure.
We have dozens and dozens of other very popular integrations for e-commerce. It's Shopify, Amazon, eBay, WooCommerce, and 30 others. For anyone who needs CRM, whether they're on Salesforce or Zoho or HubSpot or some other flavor, we've got those. For shipping, lots of options. For integrated for those who are manufacturing, we've got connections to SolidWorks and Inventor and other places to get data in for those processes as well.
Okay. We do a lot of automation work for clients in tools like Make, Zapier, or Power Automate. Does Fishbowl have any pre-built connectors with like a Zapier or a Make or an open API that's available?
We definitely have an open API.
Okay.
Sorry, I can't speak. We have an open API that's available. Our connections into those solutions I just named and others are actually not through Zapier. They're direct native integrations because we find
Okay.
we can actually pass the data that we want in the timeframes that we need.
Sure.
So for e-commerce, as an example, it needs to be prompt. If it sells on Amazon, we need it to pull off of eBay at that moment.
Yes.
So we don't use those integrated tools as often natively, but lots of customers that are connecting into lots of other things, and Zapier or some other system is certainly compatible. We've got full API access in through Fishbowl.
What's coming next for Fishbowl? Is there anything in the pipeline, a feature request, anything that you're excited about that is coming next?
Oh man, so many things that we're we're looking forward to in Q4 and then in the coming year. A couple of call outs there. One is that I mentioned AI, and we've had AI capabilities since 2018 with Fishbowl, but we're doing a better job of embedding those AI components and elements to be real-time and native to our interface. Another piece that we've recently just rolled out, I'll show a little bit is in the demo, and there's more coming, but we've got embedded dashboards that allow for greater insight at a moment. So sales and purchasing, inventory and manufacturing dashboards that are all available, and those will be continued to be enhanced over the coming months to allow operators and end users to really get in and do more with their data. Going back to that point of visibility, we've got a lot coming on that front, as well as some improvements to our manufacturing capabilities. So we've got a solution that works closely with Fishbowl. It's a Fishbowl product, but it sits as a companion app designed to run on Android and iOS devices. And that mobile application allows for time tracking and capture of labor for specific work orders. For those that are in the manufacturing world, direct labor costs can be impactful, and having good visibility there is a must. And so that's a great offer that we have today. And one of the things that's coming in the future is to more fully embed that and allow greater reporting and visibility between what's happening on the mobile app and back to the operator. So, a production manager or a CEO or someone who's in charge of parts acquisition can have good visibility on both the direct service labor aspect as well as the inventory management. So it all starts with our sales workflow here, Thomas. We've got orders coming in, orders going out, and it centers around inventory management. So what you're seeing now are an overview of the different workflows that Fishbowl supports. Now, I mentioned already that oftentimes we're connecting into an accounting system like QuickBooks or Xero. And so a portion of those burdens, they transfer over to Fishbowl where it relates back to the inventory itself, which means that we start out with our purchasing. So Fishbowl includes the ability to manage vendors in a much deeper level than what QuickBooks would natively. We have the ability to put in multiple addresses and details, which are things that you'd be common seeing, but then it graduates into additional detail. So we can have purchase history, we can have specific part numbers for a vendor. So if they have a different number to what we call it, that includes additional information like costing detail, the unit that you're purchasing in, if there's a minimum order quantity, the lead time associated with this, and that lead time can be by unit of measure type. So if I buy a case, it may take 3 days to get here. If I buy a pallet, it takes 13 days to get here. All of that vendor management is part of Fishbowl's offering and really kind of sets the foundation for good inventory control and getting things in and knowing that we're buying them from the right spot. You can have default vendors. You can set the different items that you may want. Additional information like the ability to set cost rules. So in certain industries, we see it frequently in medical and automotive would be two segments where there's a negotiated rate, and based on the number of items that you're purchasing from the vendor, the cost goes down or up. So we can set those types of rules in as well. So I can say that when I buy this widget and I buy this quantity, then the cost can change. Once I put this type of information in a Fishbowl, it will actually make recommendations to me on if you buy 2 more units, you actually save 20% or whatever that may look like, depending on those cost rules. So a lot of detail there just on that purchasing front from a vendor management standpoint. Once your purchase order data is in, your vendors are in, your day-to-day workflow is going to include originating purchase orders from Fishbowl. And that's for a couple of reasons. One, we get to draft off of the capabilities that the solution provides for vendor management, but also it impacts our inventory and forecasting significantly. So a bit of an overview on purchasing as it goes, what's here and available, what you've been doing, default vendors that you're purchasing from, margins that you've got associated, et cetera. And that drives into what are the things I actually need to buy. So there are a few tools here that can really help on that. One way to purchase items is to manually create an order. So I can come in and select my vendor, the item or items I want to purchase, and I can roll forward. Another version of that is actually using our auto PO functionality. So auto PO will actually go out and look at all of the items that we've got. It looks at the inventory. It also includes other things that are already on order. So we know what's previously been booked and we're just waiting to get in. And then it will calculate and say, here's what I need to purchase based on that criteria. So that's another way to go about purchasing, is to let the system actually define that. And it's fun to watch as customers start using it. I'm going to jump over to our inventory module for a moment and show you an example of some of the data that's being tracked in real time. We have the on-hand quantity, and we include what's already been spoken for as allocated. There's also locations that could be set in Fishbowl to include not available stock. An example of this would be for QA/QC hold. So if you need to bring things in and it doesn't go right to the sales floor, but we need to verify and validate, if something needs to be recorded, if tests need to be run, if a certificate of analysis for certain industries have to be recorded before things can be sent out the door, whatever those scenarios may be. Fishbowl is going to help track all of that, as well as what you already have on order. So maybe you put a PO in yesterday and we're just waiting for the goods to show up. We need to know about it. The long and short is that the auto PO tool looks at all of this information and then based on that makes recommendations. We can also supplement that data with an auto PO function that's AI driven. So instead of just looking at what's happening here and now, we can also include forecasting and build out and what we expect. It can include seasonality, world events. Like a few years ago, there was a ship that's turned sideways in the Suez Canal, and right away, anyone who was shipping product through that, they went from a 3-week lead time to an 18-week lead time. And with our AI capabilities, we can know about those things as they're happening, as vendors are informing customers about what's going on with product. And then not to complicate it too much further, but everything I'm talking about is really in the context of a single location. Fishbowl also provides the ability to manage stock in as many locations as you may have. That could be warehouses throughout the country. It could be a warehouse with, a half dozen service vans that are out doing work in the field. It could be a combination of all of those things, as well as, maybe consigned stock that you have out in other places for your customers to use as needed, or whatever it may look like. All of that capability around purchasing and inventory management extends to whatever number of locations may be requisite to work your business. Is a great time to bring up user permissions as well. So Fishbowl has a really extensive set of permissions that are available. Every user, we understand that the necessity of allowing people to see the right data. So we're logged in here as the admin for the demo, but if my job is only to pick orders, I don't need to see everything that's happening off. I certainly don't need to see the cost of the inventory. I just need to see what to go get and where to get that from. So as an example of the permissions that are available, you can see by module, edit, view, options, and details within those. And this goes right down to specific fields that may or may not be available for a given user.
And can you set up sort of like multi-level approvals? If there's sort of like you've got a project manager and you've maybe got like a senior manager, project manager does certain things and the senior manager approves sort of like the entire order.
Yeah, absolutely. So we actually have a fun case study there. One of the entities using Fishbowl today is the U.S. Air Force. And I'd never seen complexity in requisition until we started dealing with the Air Force. Depending on the cost of the purchase order, it may go between 1 and like 7 signatures to get things out the door. To buy a ballpoint pen is ridiculous in some cases. So whatever number of levels they may need and how that sign off looks, we can tie that back to a workflow that supports the right people getting involved at the right times.
And then another question I have for you is, how would Fishbowl handle like a non-inventory part? Like if you're buying screws or, certain things that you don't necessarily have stock counts for, but you still want to sort of resell.
Yeah, that's a great point. So Fishbowl, while it is inventory related, we recognize that for a business to operate, there's lots of other workflows that are happening at the same time. So we actually have a ability to store and to record and workflow different types of items. So non-inventory nuts, bolts, screws is a very common example. Packaging and materials would be another one where you can buy those, have them expensed, use the burden of that if you're in a manufacturing scenario to roll up to the total cost, but you don't have to inventory count each of them. Other examples of that would be labor or service that are happening, or capital equipment for machinery that you're purchasing in, internal use items for those who do R&D, and lots of other ways to utilize that. So certainly beyond inventory, that while that is our core, we can help support those other scenarios too. Another call out there would be, there are times where maybe it's an inventory item, but not for me. So what I mean by that are scenarios where we do drop shipping. We work with furniture companies who more and more don't even have physical locations, warehouses. They're just doing everything third party drop ship. It's important for them to still capture what they're buying and what they're selling, even though there's no physical goods involved in the process. So Fishbowl is great to handle those scenarios as well.
Excellent, thank you. And then how would you deal with variation? So if you've got like someone who's buying t-shirts, for example, they've got different sizes, is Fishbowl able to manage that kind of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. And so that's maybe a simple example of, I've got a t-shirt, I need this artwork to go on it, or I've got a SKU and it's this size and this color. We can also handle more complex variations of that. So I'm going to jump over now to our bill of materials section for those who are manufacturing. And we do the same thing in kits. But in this example, we're creating a mountain bike. And the mountain bike, you can choose which frame you want, A or B. Which handlebars do you want? Which chain ring do you want? And this can be as many levels and options as you want. This can also roll up into sub bill materials. So a great example of that would be, we've got a company who build snow plows. If you're in an area of the world where you have to deal with snow, then you can appreciate that not all snow plows are created the same way. So they start with a base level frame. And is it a straight blade? Is it a V-neck? Do we have lights on top, markers on the side, all these different configurations that go into it? They'll build out subcomponents, and then when a customer calls, the very first question is, what apparatus are we mounting this blade to? Because that informs, what does the bracket need to look like, and what configuration, and what can it support, what springs need to go into it. Once they figure out what that unit is, the vehicle that's going to be driving the plow, now we can talk about all of the variations of the plow itself, the attributes to it, what wear bars they need to look, the width, height, and strength of the blades. I'm not an expert on snowplows, but I learned a whole lot about the complexity of that industry, and Fishbowl has a great solution to make sure that all of those variations can be handled. Going backwards a little bit, it can be more simplified than that. So in that scenario, we're expecting an operator to go out and to build things, and they're going to weld and cut and sand and finish and powder coat, and each of those are different steps with labor. A more simplified scenario would be, I might have a kit that I send out with a bicycle, or a first aid kit would be another example. One of our customers, they buy in medical supplies and then bundle them together. So on the sales order, we can also set up kits, and it's as simple as saying, here are the items that go into the kit, or that same variant I was talking about of optional and variable items, how many and which ones, those are also available. So in this case, I've got a bike repair kit, and these are all the things that come in it. Or I can say, pick A or B, pick 1 or 5, whatever it may look like, to bundle those things together too.
That's great, yeah. And just while we're on the screen, I've noticed this, you've got various different column headers, like the number, the description. Can those be customized? So if there's certain sort of like custom fields that the client uses, they can be changed.
Yeah, absolutely. So the layout of the tables can be modified by a user. So these are all the things that I've got showing now, and I can pick which information I want to show. And then Fishbowl also supports line item detail custom fields. So I can add custom fields here, as well as order level custom fields, and they can be a variety of types. So you can see an example of the different places that you can place custom fields. So these are the modules where they would exist. So here's an example. We look at sales order or sales order line item, and then the type of custom field varies as well. So do you want a checkbox? Do you want a text field? Do you want a drop-down list that predefine the entries? You want a URL? Is it a money field? Whatever that may look like. And then one more callback to the permissions we were talking about earlier. You can actually create access rights to access and interact with those custom fields that have been created.
Yeah, that's great. So if you've got a lot of custom data, it doesn't necessarily fit into your standard sort of software. You can create all these custom fields, refer to it. I'm sure you probably can search for it as well. There's a certain coding marker that you put on certain inventory items you can enter. Show me all the inventory with a specific custom field on it.
Yeah, that's a great call out that once the data is in Fishbowl, we can also get it right back out. So if you want to do advanced searches and say, give me everything with this custom field or that data, that's built right in. And there's no programming to make it happen. End users can jump in here and create those custom fields. There's no cap to it either. I worked recently with a company that they create literacy products for school districts. And they had something like 60 custom fields on every sales order just because they needed to trace additional information from school district and authorized buyer and which purchase order it was coming from and information about the curriculum that it fit and 47 other things.
That's
Yeah,
great, Jeff.
Thomas, that is one thing that I do want to call out from a customer perspective of just some of the other platforms that I worked with. Fishbowl really excelled when it came to custom fields, as you just saw how easy it was for Kendrick to create it on his own. That was something that historically with other systems, I would have to outsource to a consultant to help me kind of manipulate in the back end. And so anytime my business kind of changed or maybe a vendor had a new requirement of me or maybe seasonality changed and I wanted to track my sales and my product in a different way, I could easily kind of grow how Fishbowl was working with my business processes as opposed to me kind of having to mold to the way Fishbowl was set up. So it's a very fluid system that was very user friendly from that perspective alone. And having the ability to not only create the custom fields, but then report on them was just such an awesome feature for me and my team.
Sometimes your clients you check serial numbers. How would Fishbowl manage serial number tracking?
Yeah, so custom fields were one example of easily setting up traceability. Part tracking is the same thing. So, I've got a widget here, and part of the details include the ability to track. Now, I currently have 4 traceability fields set up: a lot, revision, expiry date, and serial number. Just like custom fields, these can be created by those who have sufficient permissions as well. So let's say for a moment I'm in a food and beverage organization, and one of the traceability fields I need is country of origin. I can come in here, I can say country of origin, and then I define on my raw goods or on my finished goods or work in process or wherever I need it to record that field. And it's as easy as put in a name, give an abbreviation, define the type of field that it is. We do offer true serialized traceability as well. So for those who are in firearms and defense or automotive or another place, IT companies who need a serial number and an IMEI. Anybody with a cell phone knows that there's more than just one identifying field. And so Fishbowl provides the ability to create those fields and then define them. And it forces, for audit and compliance reasons, that serial numbers must be unique. That's the nature of having a serial number. And so everything we do is reactive to, does it meet audit and compliance standards? So whether they're SOC 1, SOC 2 compliance or GMP or HACCP or SAS 70 or whatever the acronyms, ISO certification is a huge thing for certain industries. Fishbowl has taken the time not only to be compliant, but then also to understand how to set a company up so they can have success in that arena. If they need an ATF logbook, well, we know we need to use a serial number type field to get there. One other call out here is we're also GS1 compliant. So if they're using GS1 barcodes, we have scanning and mobility technology that will allow for you to define. So anybody who's using GS1 knows that the identification code associated with expiration date is 17. So that scans through and you can define whatever number of those you may have.
So would you be able to check warranties within Fishbowl?
Absolutely. So warranty periods and dates, and for those who are doing manufacturing, we've got a workflow associated with repairing warranty items. So
Excellent. Yeah.
jump over into sales, our RMA process would allow for, if there's a problem or an issue that occurs, we define who that customer is that's reaching out. There's a verification process that we can go through by order if the item is tracked, then also by serial number or lot code or whatever it may be. So we can actually trace it back to their original order to validate warranty dates. And then there are some steps that can be taken to verify what needs to be happened. So the end user or the company has the ability to say, based in this scenario, what are the things that we're going to do? So most commonly we see you're either going to give a credit for the item, you're going to repair it for them, or you're going to provide a replacement or substitution. So a replacement is I'm replacing, a broken version A for a repaired version or a fixed version A, whereas substitution, you send me A and I'll send you B. And that turns into a couple of different workflows as well, right? Are we going to send them the replacement part before they send us the damaged one? Or are we going to hold and wait until we receive it and then ship it out? So we refer to that as cross shipping, and Fishbowl has the ability to manage that cross shipment. We can also provide insights and issues into why is it being returned. So it's a warranty issue, or failure with a certain part, or it was damaged in shipping, or whatever insight they may need. So you can start to look at loss and failure rates to determine if changes need to be made to the product as well.
When you create a sales order, or you have a customer who's interested, obviously they come for a quote, you do an estimate, then they said, okay, they'll go ahead with the estimate, they want to create a sales order, but you don't have the parts or you don't have the parts in stock. Can one create purchase orders? How would the system manage the purchase orders in the background for the items that aren't in stock?
Great question. So there are a few different ways that we can go about doing that. That's really a configurable workflow. And as Kara touched on earlier, our implementation team will work closely with every client to make sure that their specific workflows are met. So an example of that would be when they're first going through, I'm going to do a fresh order here. When they're first going through and doing the quoting process, there's really no impact to inventory yet. Everything that we have is just in a bid request status. So if I were to look at this order now, its state is currently an estimate, and we can, the labeling, if it's a quote versus an estimate or a pro forma, all of these forms that I'm showing you are fully customizable, so we can make it look like whatever you want it to. A lot of folks that are coming from a system, they don't want to disrupt their clients, so we can match their current layout of whatever system they may be using. But as an aside, it's important not only to have it present well, but get the right data. So we start with estimates that can go through a number of revisions. They may change it 47 times. Quantities and costs and discounts and shipment delivery dates and all those things that really impact. We're keeping track of that information. In the background, we can see who's changing and what it changes to, weights associated with it, all those things. The purchasing element of this really takes effect when I convert from an estimate over to an issued order. So that by virtue of selecting this issue function, now we have an action taken from an inventory standpoint. Once that happens, there are a few things that can go into play. So if I say that I need 2,056 instead of, or 20,056 instead of just 56, probably upside down on my inventory. I don't have that many of this particular item on hand, right? So that's going to cause a hiccup when I go to fulfill this item. It shows short. I've only got 10 in stock, which means the other 20,000 odd need to be purchased in. So Fishbowl provides tools where I can do that right from the sales order. So I can say, buy the things that I need. And I can say either buy it all, buy the full quantity that was needed, or buy, if I've got 10 items here, buy just the short ones, or use the full quantity from the sales order where they are short. So some choices on that as well, going back to kind of where we started our first bit of the demo on our purchasing work front. We can also use the auto PO tool. So on a one-off basis, I can do it from a purchase order, or on a global basis, I can come in and you can say, okay, in order to fulfill this, I already have a few on order, as it turns out. So what I really have in the delta are 19,829 units. And then Fishbowl can suggest, buy this. You should get it from Rocky Mountain Bikes. They're the supplier that has the best price at the best lead time, or whatever the scenario may be. Maybe I need it faster than this and I can go for an alternate and get it in that way. But really several ways of informing what I should buy, where I should buy it, and how purchase orders relate back to that stock.
I work in sales and sales room. I don't necessarily know the inventory on hand. If someone comes to me and they want 500 units or something, can Fishbowl tell the sales manager how long it's going to take to get the items ordered in? So they say it's a drop ship. I don't know how many I have in stock. Fishbowl does. Is there any sort of background that can say, the customer can expect to wait 3 months? The lead time at the moment is 3 months for it, or it's, you can get it in stock within a week.
Yeah, so there are quite a few things there. If I can expound on, it starts with the sales rep can actually see the inventory right from the sales screen. So if I need to
Okay.
look up an item, I can see right here, I have 37 of this on hand, only 10 are available. I can expand out and say, okay, what do I got? Where's it at? What do I have on order already? When will they be coming in? So I can see the lead time associated with it if there's an order on hand. Additionally, we could also go through and we can say, okay, we're going to sell 1,000 of this thing. And this one, I'm going to build on. I've got it. And then this next one, I need to build it. So there's a manufacturing element to it. I can go through and configure. I can see lead times associated with those as well. So in this case, it's the same day lead time, but if it were a 10-day, I'd see that built in
Nice.
also. And then the last thing I want to call out here, sorry, I'm on a tangent here, Thomas, but in addition to these types of things, we can also set up substitute products. So maybe I don't have this widget, but that one's very similar to it. In our setup here on our products, if I go to this B201 widget is a brake cable, and there may be another brake cable that's very common to that or similar. I can jump in here and say, okay, if I don't have this one, then I can sell this other one in its stead. And so then when I go through that sales process, it will actually make the recommendation based on if I don't have a B201, I can show you what that looks like. So we'll do another new order here, jump in and say we need 4,000 B201s, and I don't have that, then it's going to kick off and tell me what I need. That's a behavior that can be defined in the orders as well. So I've just pulled up now an example of some of the different settings that become available to allow users to define how they see inventory. So in this case, I'm saying my sales guys know, don't check it. If I change that over, maybe they need to look by a particular location or only the location that they're in. And by setting those things, it alters the behavior of what happens. So if I do this same thing over again with that set, and now I say I'm selling 4,000 of those items, it's going to catch and say, wait, hold on, you don't have enough. So do you want to add it anyway? Do you want to add just the amount that's available, which in this case is 20 units? Do you want to drop ship it, work with your vendor and have them send it direct to your customer? Or do you want to look at a substitute item, which in this case we defined is a B200. And then again, the cycle starts. I can see, well, what do I actually have on hand? How do I work through that? So lots of variants, all of these working toward the workflows that a customer may want to support for their organization.
Hendrik, just
And
as
then,
we're wrapping up here, you mentioned in the kind of the four things you wanted to highlight in our introductory chat was kind of the visibility and the transparency into Fishbowl. I think that was a great example of like you're jumping around there and we saw on that sales screen all the information that's kind of available right at your fingertips. You're right on, you're ahead of me already with showing kind of the dashboard and reporting aspect of it. Can you just give a quick overview of what the reporting looks like?
yeah, for sure. That's a great call out, Kyle. So everything that we've been going through is very tactical and operational. These are the day-to-day workflows
Yeah.
that support a business and what they're doing, but it all boils up to how do I make better decisions here? Well, it starts with recording all the right data, but ultimately it drives into what's happening. So strategically, I can place my business in the best way. And there are a variety of reporting tools that Fishbowl allows and provide end users. So dashboards like what I'm showing here for sales and for purchasing are some of those examples. We provide reporting information out in a variety of other ways as well. So we've got reports in the system that will show very detailed information. You know, if I need to see my aging report, I can jump in and say by location, what is all the things that I've got, the places that they live, the quantities that I've got. I can show out and export data to Excel or to CSV files as well. And then we're short on time, so I won't jump in and pull it up, but we also have a full AI module that allows for end users to jump in and to really have conversational insight to the information that's happening in Fishbowl. So the actions that are occurring on a day-to-day basis are ultimately driving into what's really going on in my business, what trends am I seeing, what costs are doing, how are my performance of my sales versus my vendor's performance, etc.
Question: what does it cost?
Yeah.
Any information you have on kind of pricing, structure, that type of thing would be helpful.
We have pricing that ranges from $99 to $285 per user per month. It waterfalls and scales based on the number of users that you may have, and it's a subscription-based model with annual or monthly billing options. There are no fees for volume as it relates back to orders or line items or some of those things. We're talking about how many people are using Fishbowl. That's how we drive pricing. So it's flat, transparent. You're going to know right up front what the costs are and what that looks like. Integrations that are there include our accounting, our shipping, e-com connections. We've got mobile and payment options as well. And then, like Kara talked about, the training and implementation piece is a really big part of what we offer. That's our own staff providing it. You're working directly with us. One other quick call out to that is that along with that implementation specialist, we also have US-based support and a dedicated account manager that you're going to be able to work with. So it's real people on the phones.
What's the best way for somebody that might be interested in Fishbowl to kind of reach out?
Definitely, they can reach out directly to you.
And we will link it wherever you're looking at this video. It will be linked below. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yourself.
Thanks,
Cheers.
Ron.
Okay.
Bye.
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 Bye.